Well, good evening and welcome to the Sunbury Finance Committee meeting, March the 19th, 2025. Can we go ahead and get a roll call, please, Amber?
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mrs. Cooper, here, Mr. Gross,
Here.
Here, Mrs. Dreyer, here. Mayor St. John is not here yet.
Yes, he's running a little late, but I do believe he'll be joining us. Okay, so we have minutes from our meeting on February the 19th. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Motion. I'll second.
Got motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Ghost. Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Miss Cooper, yes, Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Ms. Dreyer, yes, Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Jays, motion passes.
All right, thank you. We'll move right into new and unfinished business, and that begins with our bid opening results, and we'll start with the Cheshire Road Lift Station upgrade.
Yes, thank you. On page 5 of your packet, I put together a short memo to go over the bid results that we received in the past week. We did receive we opened 2 bids, one for Cheshire Road Lift Station upgrades and another for Columbus Street parking lot. Columbus Street parking lot is first on my list. We did only receive 1 bid for that project, and that was from Danbert. That came in at $919,000, which was over the engineer's estimate of $767,000. Verdantis did review the bid package, and next steps will be discussed in more detail later tonight by our city engineer. So I don't really have any more details at this point, but I know Ms. Odebrowski does, so she'll go over our next steps there. On the Cheshire Road Lift Station upgrades, we did have 2 bids come in for that one. The Ryder Company came in at $382,000, and Unlimited Core Solutions came in at $473,000. And as you can see, the engineer's estimate is $395,000. The bid package was reviewed by Verdantis and all seemed to be just fine. And the staff recommendation is to award the contract to the lower bid, the Ryder Company. Again, Ms. Odebrowski will discuss these in more detail in her report later tonight. But I just wanted to put those numbers out there so you could see where we are sitting right now.
Will that be on the agenda for the council meeting tonight?
Yeah.
That item?
No, it will not. So we're just introducing it this evening. We'll bring the formal resolution with staff recommendation to the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. We have an F4 tornado developing here in the council chambers.
Well, these windows are double.
All right, right, okay.
I do have a question.
Yes,
on
please.
these. It seems like it's very difficult for us to get bids on projects. Why is that so? I mean, the just 1 bid on the Columbus Street parking lot, that just seems odd to me.
It's a Carla answer.
Yeah, Ms. Odebrowski, look at that. She's coming up to the podium to address your question.
Good evening, yes, and I too am disappointed anytime we only get 1 contractor interested in a project. For this project specifically, there are a few different factors. One, the pavers, that can be a specialty item, so to find a contractor that specifically wants to do that work can be part of the issue. The other components can be time of year, what work is available out there that we're competing with. And one of the indicators that we try to follow is we have these pre-bid meetings so that a contractor can come in and ask questions. It's usually a good sign if we have a couple people in the room, or we hear from the design consultant that maybe questions have been asked and answered. So it's really just a matter of continuing to get our name out, and I'll talk about it a little bit more at council tonight, but maybe bidding this out with a larger project might draw in some more bidders.
Yeah, thanks for the answer. I was just going to say that, I mean, not only if you try to get any type of work, even personally, like a plumber or, you could be waiting for a while. So I see this as probably not much different, and it being a somewhat smaller project to commit resources just for that might be something that's not as attractive if there was a larger project. So.
Well, 909,000, that's, to me, isn't the smallest project.
And I agree. And I think that if this had been similar to asphalt work straight paving, we may have had a few more bidders in the area that are already maybe in the city doing this work or planning on being in the city. For example, on Walnut Street stabilization, one of their contractors is Decker, who does paving work. So that's one way that you can kind of draw people in too. I see, Decker, you're going to be in the area. Are you aware we have more projects to bid out? So that's kind of going to be our goal moving forward, to bring in that work. Decker may not do the pavers, but knowing that we have a streets program, maybe they'll come into the area and find a subcontractor or consultant to do this work.
And their bid amount, I mean, they're what, about $300,000 over what we estimated to be. So the project isn't necessarily as big as what their bid came in at. That's just what their bid came in at. So, I mean, it might be a $600,000 project, not a $900,000 project, which is still a lot of money, but yeah.
Even with the way the market is right now, I didn't anticipate this project coming in as high as it did. But that's something that we need to look at too, and continue to look line by line at the items to see where the engineer's estimate had made certain assumptions and maybe where the contractor inflated certain items, such as if they had only one supplier for the pavers, perhaps that would greatly increase their costs. But that's the type of analysis that we do post bid.
So that 919,000 includes all the trades, all the operations, like the retaining wall, landscape package, paving, everything.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Just one other thing I was going to say, the engineer's estimate in this particular case, it's Verdantis who has done that estimate. So it's not an internal estimate that Carla has done. So we continue to use Verdantis to do these estimates for us.
They have a much larger pool of bid results to pull from. So that should be where they are getting their bid results, to see if they have a paper project or the most recent paper project, or they've heard of a paper project out somewhere else. We can share that information between cities and try and get as close to the engineer's estimate as possible.
Perfect.
You
Awesome.
email, how do you put the projects out there for bid?
So that is another service that we have, Verdantis and or whoever the design consultant is, because there is an advertising component. And then they also have different servers that they can email. There's the Builders Exchange. They may also know contractors directly via email to point out that they are going to be uploading the documents onto what they consider their website SharePoint. So right now, if you were to go to Verdantis's website, you could see the Columbus parking project, and you could see Cheshire lift station improvements. And that way you go through all the documents. You can also click on it at that point to see who else has requested drawings. That's another indicator to say, okay, we may have a good amount of interest in this project.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
So are we done with those two items? Anything else?
I have nothing else to add for those
Okay.
two.
Okay, so then we'll jump to the non-sufficient funds fee.
Yes. Page 6 and 7 of your packet. This is a draft of an ordinance. None of this has been submitted to even Daryl or Mr. Bream at this point. I wanted to put together a draft ordinance to establish a penalty fee. We did not have anything in writing, or we did not charge any penalty fees for insufficient funds. So this is an attempt to start that policy. We do on occasion receive a bad check here and there. It's not very common, but occasionally it happens. And we do incur a fee from the bank to cover the process of that bad check. So I went ahead and put together a $50 penalty per transaction, and that's listed there in section 1. And this would be for any bad check that we receive that the bank cannot cash. So that's what that is. If there's any discussion or discuss, if we'd like to discuss the amount, that's open for discussion. Otherwise, if with your approval or with your I guess with your consent, we'll go ahead and put this through to council in a future council, not tonight, but in a future council.
It seems like an odd thing to come up in 2025, but yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, is it just for checks? Because a lot of people sometimes pay their bills over online, but sometimes those online payments don't get through.
Right? This would apply to any type of, well, it does say check payment. I'll make sure that it doesn't specify checks specifically and that it just ensures that all payments received, if they're insufficient or otherwise uncashable to the city, that will fall under this policy.
Do we know what the fee the bank charges us for the NSF?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
want to say $15.
Okay.
So this would more than cover that, plus the
Right.
staff time in order
Okay,
to.
okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and then, this is completely not fair for me to ask this, but do you have any, like, a ballpark paid online versus check still paid for, like, say, sewer?
I don't, but
Okay.
I can get that information.
Okay, cause I'm just curious, as Damon was referring to, like, how many people are still writing checks into the city? And I think, don't we charge on a sewer account, do we charge like a $2.50 processing fee, or do we do that? Or
There
no?
is-
No, an electronic payment, cause I know there is for like my water bill or for Delco or,
Oh,
yeah,
Delco,
yeah,
yes.
Delco.
A couple bucks.
Yeah.
To use
And I think Columbia Gas might too.
Yeah,
I
they
can't-
do.
I think They do.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, I can't remember if we do on the sewer account or not.
We do
So-
not, cause I paid mine, but it
Oh.
won't, oftentimes it won't go through for some reason, and I keep meaning to call and say, what am I doing
Oh,
wrong? But,
interesting.
yeah,
So we have we collect payments in various ways. If a customer is paying through Invoice Cloud, ACH, there's no fee to set up that ACH. There might be a fee for the first time.
Okay.
I'd have to look into this and confirm. If a customer is going on and paying just every once in a while, they go in and pay through on our website.
Mhm.
That goes through Invoice Cloud too, but it's not through ACH or automatic ACH. I believe there is a transactional fee per transaction whenever a customer pays that way.
Okay, cause I think that's what I do. I go in through the
I think
Sunbury
that's what I do
website.
too, and I pay a fee.
Yeah, I go through utilities on the website
Yes.
and then I type in my sewer account number and my name and it pops up. I
Yeah.
think it's like a $2.50
Yeah.
fee or something like.
Yeah, that
Because
sounds,
I think you can
Right.
pay through your bank, like a bill pay, and then you get a check, right, from our bank. And I did that for a while, but then Sudbury was saying I wasn't paying my bills and Chase was
It happened
saying
to
that
me.
they took my money and I just,
It happened
in the
to
end, was
me.
like, paid Sudbury twice and just, I haven't done it again.
yeah, that's what
Because I
happened to
was
me
like,
too.
it's crazy, my sewer bill's not much, so I don't wanna pay it twice. So I started doing that and just eat the payment, cause I wanna make sure it gets paid.
And I just always wonder about that fee, whether it was Columbia Gas or whoever. Because especially for those utilities, they're really encouraging people to go electronic, go paperless, go electronic, but yet they still charge you a fee to go electronic, which I don't. And if it's taking away
I
the
don't
processing,
understand that.
yeah, if they're taking away the processing of checks and someone, having to send those through openers and pull them out and process them, that's saving them time and money. So I know that's not our fight, but I'm just like, those processing fees, this day and age in 2025 drive me bananas
too.
because.
Right.
They do this thing in Sunbury though, where they accept cash.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Carry
So-
cash.
They do.
Oh, just a thought down the road that, I don't know how much banks charge if we use that service through the website and do all that, but if we're gonna encourage people, and I don't know if that's the plan or not, to use more electronic payment, because as we get bigger, it's just easier process way. Maybe we need to look at the fee that's charged and does it make sense?
I didn't know you
So-
could pay it through.
Yeah.
if you set up an ACH auto payment, there's no fee for that. There might be a one-time fee for the initial setup, but afterwards, there's no fee.
Okay.
And you're paying electronically, automatically through your bank ACH, there's no fee. If you just simply go online through the City of Sunbury website,
Time payment.
one-time payment, there will always be a fee. And that's paid for by the customer. And those fees are typically assessed through the credit card processor themselves. So the bank that the company processing the payment, the bank they use will always charge that fee. So there's not really any way we can get around it, at least not now that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So if you do want to get rid of that fee and not pay it altogether, I recommend ACH, setting up that automatic ACH for every month
Through the city?
through the city. Yes.
So the summer comes and we fill up a pool and then my sewer bill is like,
You call and get a sewer credit.
yeah.
Okay.
But it would
good.
come out, I mean, it's just, yeah.
I want some control of when that's,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, I understand.
I get it. That's a different,
You
that's,
can pick your
Free,
date. You
that's
can
free.
pick,
Yes.
you can pick your withdrawal date on
Yeah.
that. That's how I have it set.
Okay,
Mm,
okay, good.
that's so you can always pay it on the first of the month if you want to.
okay,
Okay.
And we do take cash, as Mr. Martin mentioned, and check.
Right.
If you have those
In a
things.
big mailbox down there.
Right.
okay, so I think we have all agreed that the NSF fee is
Sufficient.
good to move on.
Sufficient.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Ghost.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I will go ahead and get this over to Mr. Bream and make sure he's okay with it and get it on a future council agenda.
Awesome. And then it looks like we're continuing the fee discussion on solicitation fee.
Yes, our solicitation fee in our codified ordinances is set at $25 per year. There was some internal discussion with the management team, believing that $25 fee was not enough to cover the processes that are involved in looking up a vendor, doing background checks. It goes through the police department. We're going to have a new process from what I understand soon. So this is simply updating and increasing that fee to $75. From what I understand, there should be some more discussion about this in the very near future, but I wanted to get this out in front of you to let you know we're looking at this, increasing this fee as well.
So that's for anyone who knocks on my door, trying to sell something, correct?
Yes,
They have to go through the city first.
correct. Background check is done. They're getting approval or denied, and they have to pay the fee.
An individual or company, right? Doesn't matter.
Correct. Yes.
A card or something to know, to let us know that they
So,
get.
so they get a permit from the city, basically a signed document, that they're supposed to have with them when they're knocking door to door. Your question about a company, and this is one of the things I think we're trying to refine a little bit with this program right now, is that, limit the number of people from the company who can actually be knocking on doors. So we can't just submit it and have 10 people out there knocking on doors. Basically, each application is limited to 2 solicitors. But what we haven't done is we haven't limited the number of applications that you could submit related to the same solicitation.
Oh,
So that's where I think we're trying to just kind of,
loophole.
yeah,
You got close to
skinny that down a little bit, if you will. And then work a little bit more closely with the police department. Right now, they do go to the police department. Our police department is basically doing a background check, but they're not really looking at the content of what the solicitors are soliciting. And so they've asked for our assistance in terms of just making sure that it's consistent with, whatever city policies might be, whatever the code, zoning code might be, that type of stuff. So I think there is a role for us to play, and that's part of what Stefan referenced.
Does it identify the length of time a permit is good for?
It's good for 1 year. And actually,
Okay.
the fee, I think here says for 1 year. That's one of the other things, though, that staff's working on, is updating the application to identify the period of time in which they're going to be soliciting. So not just the
Made it
date.
$75 a day, we'd probably have fewer people coming to try to do this.
Well, that is true. We probably have a lot fewer if that were the case. Yeah, right now they identify the days of the week that they're going to be soliciting, but they don't indicate the time frame. Like, I'm doing this for the next 3 months. So again, something for us to kind of clean up a little bit on our side.
So I can call the Girl Scouts and try to sell the
Right, that's
cookies,
what I was
say you
gonna
pay your
say, too.
$75.
What about 4-H? What about the 4-H?
Are they going door to door?
We actually,
They did.
we used to have a statement in there not charging them. In the old language, I thought there was a statement in there that specifically talked about school groups and Girl Scouts and those kind of things.
Because the football team will sell the coupon.
Yeah.
Thing,
I thought there was something in the original ordinance addressing that.
just to let you know, I'm not suggesting that they have to pay that fee. Right? For the rest, I think, yeah.
I definitely want Girl Scouts and
Yeah, I should be able to
sports
make
groups to stop by my house. But
Right.
whatever the fee needs to be to keep pest control companies and stuff
Yeah.
a little lower would be
Give you a new
fantastic.
vacuum.
The FH,
What's that? Right, don't need a vacuum cleaner or a set of encyclopedias.
It's not like farmer's market or any of that. This is just for,
Door to door sales. That's right.
okay.
So we'll definitely look into the issue of the nonprofits. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's been a practice and maybe not necessarily in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Maybe we should add it to the ordinance. So
Yeah,
we'll
'cause I
do
hate for them to
that.
get called out or something. if-
Yeah.
So when they come to your door, because we get a lot of people for the electric saying, can I see your electric bill? We can beat this price. And they're soliciting. From now on, they'll have a tag or something that says they've paid this fee.
Well, they should always have it. That's been in effect for a
I'm
long
gonna ask
time.
every one of them.
Yep.
Well, it's a factor, really,
Yeah.
because you don't
I
know
mean-
who's coming to your door,
Mhm.
no matter if it's a business or a residence. I've never seen a tag that says they paid this fee.
That may not be a bad thing to post on our website or Facebook page, just as summer's warm weather approaching. You should see this tag on any solicitor
Definitely,
that comes to your door. I'm wondering if that would be a
business and
bad,
or residence.
yeah. Just a thought. Oh, public service announcement maybe.
Well, if the language in the
Yeah.
ordinances is any indication of how old this is,
Peddlers
those by hand.
with a
hand-drawn
hand in
vehicles,
cart or you know,
be ready to up that fee.
Yeah,
along with these fees, I think it might be a good idea, you know, the yard signs, those corrugated plastic cardboard yard signs. It might not be a bad idea if you're gonna put these things out to register these. And you're allowed after the date on your sign, after your function is over, if 3 days, if you don't go and get that sign and we find it or the city finds it, then you get fined $50 because it's trash. It's trashy and they're junk. They make our area look junky and the cars run over them and they're kind of a hazard. But you see so many at all the crosswalks. I think if people are gonna put them out there, they get a permit. And then if 3 days after the date of their function, if it's still out there, then they get a fine for not cleaning up their sign.
Yeah, so there's a standard in the city zoning ordinance with respect to temporary signs. So what you're describing, I think it's 30 days after an event, but for like a yard sale or something like that, I do think there's a shorter standard. So we'll look at that and maybe just put together a briefing page for council members.
Alex is working on something like.
Yeah,
this.
he's actively trying to stay on top of signs. It's been a challenge,
Yeah,
but
because he was trying to come up with like a map too, so he was aware where the signs were.
Mhm.
But it sounds like it's an ongoing project, but I think Alex is working on something.
okay, we'll ask Alex to
Yeah.
at least put together a one pager on that. You're writing that down, right? That's what I thought.
okay, so it looks like we have the green light on that. And then I think that moves us right into our monthly year-to-date comparison reports and bank to book reconciliation and check register.
Yes, let's look at the numbers. All right. Starting on page 10 of your packet, you'll see the year-to-date revenue report by fund. And this will be for January and February. 16.67% through the year. So that's my benchmark to calculate the variances. Any variance that is more than 10% is explained in the comment section. So it being March, there isn't a whole lot of activity on our revenues, at least nothing major to discuss at this point. But I will point out a few items. I'll go over the income tax a little bit later. But let's see, interest income is definitely gonna be exceeding our budget for the year because we're already at 130,000 in income and we've budgeted 400,000. So I think we'll see that being surpassed probably in the next couple months, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
Also, we have some budgeted state grant money, and I've listed out what that dollar amount consists of. We have the 500,000 ODNR grant for J.R. Smith Park, 300,000 from OPWC that the city was not awarded, and the 520,000 for the hazard mitigation, which is Walnut Street. So I wanted to put some of that information here so you could see what we're expecting to receive. Obviously, since we did not get that OPWC grant, we won't be receiving the 300,000 this year. So we'll have to keep that in mind. The electric charging station, we have seen an uptick in those revenues. This is at the bottom of page 10. We only budgeted $1,000 for the year, but we've already received 781. So we'll definitely surpass that. It's small, these are just little pebbles we're talking about here, but
That's that single battery charging
There's
station.
two.
There's two now.
Two of them. When it was built, there were two,
Really?
side by side, yeah.
Is there two?
Where are they located? I don't even know where they.
Sure.
The old church parking lot, the
Parking
old
lot.
church parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good to know that you are collecting something on that. When we first started, it was almost, $100.
right.
For the
And I
year.
wonder if people just didn't know about it there, but
Obviously.
people seem to be catching on and using it. So we are getting some revenues from that, which is good. Okay, let's see, what else can I talk about here on the revenues? It's all pretty standard, nothing much to discuss for revenues. We won't receive our our property tax revenues from the county until later this month. So you won't see any money come in yet on this report. On page 12 of your packet, I'll just touch on one more item. In the Capital Projects Fund, this is Fund 701. So it's towards the bottom of your page 12. You have estimated revenues of 2.7 million from state grant. This is including money from the state for East Granville Street. And, well, it's all East Granville Street, the two portions of that project, two separate but combined portions. I'm not really sure how to say that, but same project, different project.
How much was that again? I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
I'm looking at the 2.725 million it says State Grant Fund 701. So again, just some information to help you wrap your head around what we're looking to collect. Any questions on revenues? Okay, I'll move on to expenses. This is on page 13 through 17 or so. Everything that's highlighted in yellow did exceed the variance threshold, so I'll discuss those. Starting on page 13, we have the general fund first, and general fund is divided up by departments, police department being first on the list. We've got towing expenses that are exceeding and officer uniforms that are exceeding. The towing, again, small dollars, but we are going to exceed that, it looks like. And in uniforms, we're running high right now at this point in the year because of the uniform allowance that was paid in February. Annually in February, all of our officers who will get a $500 clothing allowance for the year. That extends beyond the officers as well, though we have a clothing allowance for the high vis gear for our safety workers and our wastewater treatment plant workers as well. But in the general fund here, it's just police for this portion.
And that's all these $500 checks that are written out to all these police officers. That
Exactly.
makes sense.
You got it. All right, the third yellow item on page 13 is for street lighting. And as you can see, we are almost fully spent on that. We're at 71%. There was a large bill that came in that wasn't paid until this year. It was related to items that were purchased or ordered in 2024. So, and that'll be kind of a theme for the rest of the discussion. You'll notice there are some payments that should have been received or paid in 2024, but for whatever reason, we don't receive the invoice, or there's a miscommunication, or whatever reason, it gets paid in the subsequent year. New budget. So it kind of throws things out of whack if we're trying to, see where all the expenses are coming and are we getting the right expenses throughout the year. This throws things all out of proportion.
Yeah, so it's I'm not saying like misleading, but I don't want the public to think that, oh, wow, how we, miss budget that much. And if it's an expense from the previous year, I don't know, is there a way to indicate that, to say this is, carryover expense that was, because that money's still there because it wasn't used in the previous fiscal year. It's just not showing on this sheet. So it looks like it wasn't budgeted properly and then we had an expense come we weren't expecting versus where that's not the case. I don't know if there's like an easy way to say item, budgeted in previous year, expensed in current year.
Yeah, and that's what I put in the comments here.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. I guess that makes sense, but it's just, you look at the raw number and it's like, oh my.
Right, right. Well, I'm open to suggestions.
I don't know, maybe the
can't-
comments enough, that's, yeah.
And this is an internal report. Of course, it's
Right.
available to the public. So if the public has questions, they're always welcome to ask me, give me a
Right.
call or send me
That's
an
true.
email.
All right, never mind, keep going, sorry, thank
No,
you.
it's fine. Next one, traffic signals. We're just a little bit high on there for AEP, so I'll need to monitor that account and make sure that we're staying in budget or need to increase the appropriation if necessary. Under zoning department, contractual services for zoning, we are at 30% spent. That was primarily due to the $25,000 OpenGov annual license. We pay that in January, so. In the wages, you'll notice several of these are a little bit out of, they're trending high, and that is because in January, we had 3 payrolls. We work on a 26 payroll year, so there's not 24, which would mean an easy 2 every month. 2 of the months out of the year, there are 3 payrolls. So that's just the way it works. And it'll be really fun when we have 27th payroll in the year. Don't get too excited about that. But occasionally there's a 27th payroll, and as you can imagine, that causes a little problem for the finance team. And okay, we have to budget for, an extra payroll for the year. There is a way that we can place funds into a special revenue fund and hold money for that specific purpose for that 27th payroll whenever it comes. And I think it's coming in 3 years. I have a schedule at my desk to know exactly when that's coming so that I'm prepared for it. So you didn't need all that information just now, but I thought it was kind of relevant to the discussion on the number of payrolls, so I thought I would bring it up. Contractual services and admin, we're still on page 13 of the packet, just for your information. We're at 34.5% for those services. I listed out what we've paid. Verdantis was 190,000 of that. 130 of that 190 was for the East Side Utilities project alone. Legal services, we've paid 41,000 for the year. Montrose Group, 22,000, and that did include a couple of 2024 payments that were made late in this year. In supplies, we're at 28%, and this one is largely contributed by the Delaware County Regional Planning annual dues for $6,500. Did you want to make a comment on that?
Well, I did actually want to make a comment on the previous one. So if I could go back up to the contract administration or contract services, obviously the Verdantis expense here is sizable, and some of those legal fees are not necessarily Mr. Bream's. They are outside counsel that we've engaged for other purposes. So we are trying to monitor these expenses very closely because ultimately they'll get passed on to the developer, who is the reason why we're doing the engineering services associated with the East Side development. So as we work through the development agreements, we'll be sure to kind of recapture these at some point. So this is out-of-pocket cost today, but again, targeted for repayment at some later point in time. So just want to make sure you know that. The other thing that Ms. Stefan was alluding to is the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission. So I'm just studying that a little bit more. What I do know is that other cities in Delaware County are not a part of the Regional Planning Commission once they kind of move out of a village status. So I think we just want to understand kind of what the benefits of that organization continue to be and whether the city needs to be enrolled in the same level that we are. So we're enrolled fully this year, but I think we're going to take a closer look at that in the future.
Okay, I'll move on to page 14 if there's no questions. At the top of page 14, again, the same comment on wages because of that 5 payroll periods during the 2-month period. Same thing with the benefits, and travel for legislative is a little high, but again, that's just small dollars. And that's not necessarily travel, it's travel and training. I put them in the same, it's all training. Mayor's Court contractual services are trending a little high. We'll keep an eye on those. I'll skip the wages again because it's the same comment. Down in contractual services for land and buildings, we're at 19% spent. couple of things in here. The $4,400 from Verdantis was related to Reservoir Park, and that project was completed last year. This was just a late invoice that got in that we had to pay in 2025. So I will keep an eye on that line throughout the year. And then the last one on page 14, the auditors and treasurers fees, the $5,975 that we've paid, those are for property taxes. Just so you all know, I have submitted DTE 23s, which is a property tax exemption form. I've submitted those for all of these properties that we are being assessed property tax on, because the city shouldn't have to pay the property tax. It should be exempt from those. So I've submitted those requests to be exempt from property for those parcels. And I do expect that the county will grant that. It's actually the state that grants it through the county. I do expect that to happen, and we should get a refund for the money that was spent.
Is that just for the 1 year or is that for previous years too?
1 year.
1 year, okay. I mean, the refund, I'm sorry. So like, have we paid taxes on that we shouldn't have for previous years or just this year?
Well, it was the same situation last year where we paid on properties that we shouldn't have, filed the DTE 23, and then got the refund.
You
So,
have to do that every year. It's not something they keep on.
well, there's probably a way that I could monitor and see what properties are coming online for us to pay. When we get annexations, for example, or parcels get rezoned or replatted, sometimes that property, little pieces of property come in and the city is required to either file the property tax exemption form or pay the tax on it. So I'll check with the county and see if there's a better way to get ahead of those before we get the bill and it's due. So I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 15. We're a little bit high on the street travel and training, but they're getting some training in, which is great. And so for supplies, we're a little bit high there. Wanted to point out why we're so high on this line here. And we're at the top of the page on page 15. $48,000 was spent already on road salt and hauling of road salt. It's a big expense, as you can see. So I believe that we're doing some other research into where we can save money on salt.
Yeah, so that's a good segue. On the agenda this evening is an ordinance or resolution, I think, for the city to participate in the ODOT purchasing program. According to Jake, he thinks that would result in saving somewhere in the 30% range for the city if we become a part of that larger purchasing cooperative. So we'll have the first reading tonight. We don't need to act on it, but that's what I think Ms. Stefan is alluding to. There's an attempt to kind of find a better strategy for any lower cost option for salt moving forward.
And just one question. So we've had mild winters pretty much the last few years. This winter was a little bit more intense. So do we think we might have under budgeted a little bit for this year based on the previous year's budget? And that's why we're a little surprised by the 48,000 for salt this year as being kind of more than what we
Say
anticipated.
that's part of it, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
The costs are just rising
Mhm.
everywhere. Okay, now that's all the general fund. So we're moving down to the street fund. We had some payments go out to Verdantis for the Safe Streets for All. That's the $11,815 that was paid there. And we do get to submit those for reimbursement. I believe it's 75% reimbursement. Yep. We have paid on debt service. We've paid one of two semi-annual payments for the OPWC projects that we have. These are on interest-free loans, by the way. Down at the bottom of page 15, impact fee roads. I did spend some money there for the Sunbury Meadows traffic calming that was done in 2024. We got the invoice in a little late. That's why it's showing up in this year's expenses. And that was taken to impact fees. The rationale behind that was that there's a lot of new developments going on in that area. So with development paying for itself, I felt that it was appropriate to have the impact fees pay for that. But I understand that it could be more of a discussion. And I'll leave it at that. All right. Moving on to page 16. In the cemetery fund, first yellow there, we've we're at just under 28% spent for contractual services. A lot of the majority of this is related to first impressions for their landscaping at the cemetery. These were just some bills that fell through the cracks, didn't get noticed until this year. So they should have been paid in 2024, but didn't get paid till 2025, which is throwing our budget out of whack for that line. Then we move down into the sewer fund at the bottom of page 16. We've got the first two items there, contractual services and capital sewer billing. This is all spent on the sewer rate study that was done by Baker Tilly at the end of last year. Again, services done in 2024. It was very late in the year, so it's reasonable that we didn't get those bills until 2025. So that's what that's driving. Also, chemicals for the sewer plant are trending high. That was just one payment to NEO water treatment for chemicals for treating the raw sewage. And one final page on my expense analysis, page 17. These two highlighted items are easy to explain. These are the OWDA semi-annual loan payments. We pay them in January and July every year. So the January payments are already showing we've spent 50% of that budget, which is accurate. And that's all I have to go through for my expense and revenue analysis. If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Questions from Stephanie?
We have the year-to-date fund report for your information on page 18. And then page 19 through the end is the list of all the checks that were cut in the month of February. I'll just highlight some of the big ones here. The CT Consultants, which is Verdantis, we paid them $143,000 this month. Delaware County Engineers on page 20, that $28,975, that is for salt. Also, the Henderson Material Handling, that's for salt hauling. So there's a hauling portion to get the salt to where we want it and actual paying for the salt. So two pieces.
We have to have it.
Yes.
And we've had more ice this year too, which I think is a factor.
Lake Erie Construction Company, kind of 2/3 of the way down the page on page 20, that $4,975. Just wanted to let you know, we did receive an insurance claim for that amount. So this was a wash. It was money that we had to pay to have the guardrail fixed when a individual ran into it. But through the insurance process, we've gotten that money back. So that's good. And on the last page, there's a $6,983 payment to Lexipol. That's for annual fees for the police department for their laws and regulations. Yeah, and the other large ones are payroll.
Any questions on checks? Okay. I think that just leaves us with the year-to-date income tax collection by
Yes.
category.
Yes, so I'll just go through a couple of things on the page 1 of your packet. I have my typical chart that I like to display for the income tax categories. 2025 is on the far left down through 2021. As you can see, we're down right now about 7% overall from 2024. That's largely being driven by the high amount of collections that we had in 2024 for the individual line. If you look at the individual line there and go over to 2024, you can see we collected $228,000, which was significantly higher than what we had collected in 2023 and more than we collected this year for that bucket. I believe that's due to the subpoena program that we had instituted back in late 2024. 2023, sorry, or whenever we did it. It drove in a lot of individual payments for the income tax. So I think that's what's driving up that number there and showing us as having a decrease in collections year to date so far. I don't anticipate that decrease in collections to to be an issue throughout the year, since it is only February. I would just take these numbers and wouldn't extrapolate them out or annualize them out for the end of the year and see where we're going to end up. It's just too soon to do that. But it does give us a good picture of where we're collecting things. If you look at the withholding for 2025 and 2024, they're almost exactly the same.
Believable.
Yeah. And when it comes to net profit, those numbers are always all over the place. So it's hard to find a nice trending model for net profit revenues. And then for my bank balances, you can see my reconciliation at the bottom. All three of our separate accounts we have about $21,078,112.73 with outstanding checks totaling about $32,000. And that reconciles our bank to book. And I have all the variances identified. If anyone would like to see them, I'm more than happy to provide.
Thank you for the information. Any questions from Ms. Steffen? Thank you very much. Appreciate all the updates and the information. I think that takes us to the end of the program. Yes, our next meeting is April the 16th, same time, same place. I guess we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Dreyer. I'll second it. Call please.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mayor St. John?
Yes.
Mr. Ghost?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper? Yes. Mr. Martin?